Well, at the last meeting, I think we spent a lot of time discussing this point, and we debated whether or not we should spell out that the fact that intermediary includes both agents and brokers with different functions. We had a very long discussion, and we eventually decided that we would accept the government's drafting. But the Federation of Life Insurers have just written to the chairman. I think we've just received it today. Again, they are referring to the same point. And if I may read it out again, although it's in English, he said that the drafting should be to differentiate between the definition for intermediaries, which is to differentiate between agents and brokers. And for 89A, an intermediary should act in the best interest of the policyholder, but then you have to distinguish between the agent and the broker who have, and there are different requirements for the two, and so long as if they act reasonably, it should be all right. I think we've talked about this many times already, but many leaders, many senior management of the intermediaries have called me up about this point. If this panel, accept that there should be an amendment, that's so much the better. But I would also like to listen to the administration's response. Chairman, well, as members have pointed out, we've discussed this many times already. For the insurance intermediary, if you look at the paper of the last meeting, CB 855, we have already explained that this ordinance already defines, stipulate that insurance agents and insurance brokers are two separate categories. 64W and U stipulate that the insurance agent must be authorized by the insurer. So we believe that the provision clearly, define what is an agent and what is a broker. So therefore, we don't believe it is necessary to repeat all that in the Code of Conduct again, and making such a distinction between the agent and the broker. So we don't think that such an amendment is necessary. As I said last time, once the IIA is set up, it will issue guidelines for the industry as to how they may comply with the Code of Conduct. At that particular level, it will talk to the trade and as to how they will differentiate between the agent and the broker so that both they can comply with the Code of Conduct requirements. So to put it simply, we do not believe that there is any need to make an amendment. Well, I think the Undersecretary has put it very clearly. Other than saying that there's no problem with the provision in future, through the guidelines, the different requirements for the two types of intermediaries will be spelled out. I hope this will really help resolve the problem. But I think a legal advisor expressed her concern. Do you still have the same concern now? Thank you. In our discussion during the last meeting, I made the point that if under 89A, since we distinguish between the two in the Code of Conduct, but we do not differentiate the two different types of intermediaries in 89.1, that is not desirable. So yeah, it's still not desirable. Well, I think we have actually looked into this point with the DFJ. 89.1 is not just 89A. The Permanent Secretary already explained that there is already a Code of Conduct. Earlier, we've already had a distinction between agents and brokers. The Code of Conduct will define clearly the requirements for both. And 93A bracket 7 said that these codes of conduct, if the court were to consider such Code of Conduct, then it would have to consider the detailed enforcement of 89A. So we would need to look at the several, sections together. So having considered this thoroughly, we believe that the provision already have clearly given has already given a clear definition.
In respect of Section 89, there are provisions on the integrity requirement of the intermediaries. Number one, the intermediary must act honestly, fairly, in the best interests of the policyholder. There has been detailed discussion. At the drafting stage, there was a detailed discussion. We also had a detailed discussion with the trade, and the trade has provided that, a piece of legal advice given by the legal advisor on how to better draft Section 89. After careful consideration, we accepted the proposal of the trade, i.e., to add that just a failure does not in itself render the intermediary liable to any judicial proceedings. We've already given a letter. I find it very strange why at the very last stage we still need to reopen the discussion. Otherwise, we'll be engaged in endless discussions. We have discussed it many times before. The amendment is the final CSA after discussion. If the discussion is reopened again, then there will be endless discussions. Mr. Chen. Yes, what is said by the Deputy Secretary is the fact. There has been long discussions, but I want to point out that there is still a disagreement. The legal advisor on behalf of the Council is of the view that the way the law is drafted is not satisfactory. How can we ignore the view of our legal advisor? And please do not threaten threaten us as to what you will do. I think the legal advisor is just doing her part, and we are also doing our part. Now, if the legal advisor does not have such a view, I will not belabor the point. The administration has to balance the interests of the consumers and the insurance sector. I think the difference is in terms of wording, not in terms of interest. I agree with the chairman. Let us discuss other items first. At the previous meeting and just now, I have explained that under 89(1)(a), if there is no separation between two different parties, then I will say that the wording is not desirable or not ideal. Under 89(1)(a), if there is no specific reference on which type of intermediary has to do what to achieve 89(1)(a), then it will become unclear. The trade has already expressed this view. The administration has given the undertaking that it will specify in the code of practice the things the different types of intermediaries have to do in order to fulfill 89(1)(a). As for 89(1)(a), as it is drafted, it covers two different groups. It is not ideal, but it is not unacceptable. Now she said that this is acceptable. And we have already moved a CSA in response to the demand of the trade. Under such circumstances, under such detailed discussions, we have come to such a conclusion. We don't understand why at the last moment we need to reopen the discussion. If we are to reopen the discussion, does it mean that we have to withdraw our CSA here? If that's the case, then there will be endless discussions. Mr. Chen Kim-po, I thank the legal advisor for the further explanation. Your last word is very important. It is not ideal, but it is not unacceptable. If you say so, then I am rest assured. At the start, it is not desirable or not ideal, and now with the amendments, this is acceptable, though it is not ideal. Now, if you spell out the two different categories of intermediaries, and then it is better. Now, the present wording, the proposed wording helps a lot, but if it is not safest, it's still acceptable, that's okay. Now, you study law at the DOJ, study law, you draft the provisions. You should communicate among yourselves. You shouldn't leave the final decision to us. Now, if you say that the previous wording, the original wording, is not good, and after amendment is acceptable, though not ideal. Now, we want to be perfect, but nothing is perfect. Even if the political reform is not perfect, we still want to move one step forward. Well, please, if you think that's okay, then I think we can end our discussion here.